May I obtain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. Abandon entirely lethargy, dullness, and laziness, and exert yourself constantly with enthusiasm. I think that one of the difficulties that many of us have already had and still have in our life are with those things that we want, things that we want to do, things that we know that we should do, but that we're not able to do. We don't manage to do, not because there's some kind of, something outside that is keeping us from doing it, but something within. And we normally we would be able to do it. There's nothing that is actually tangibly keeping us from doing it, but we're not able. And this is what we would call laziness normally. Normally laziness is divided into 4 types. There's the basic laziness, like the declared laziness, like I just don't feel like it. There's another kind of laziness that says, oh, I'll do it. Yeah, I will do it. It's important. I'll do it, but I'll do it later. And then there's the laziness that says, no, yes, this is something really important, but right now I have something else to do. So you do something useless instead of doing something useful. And the last laziness is saying, oh, this is so important. I should do it, but I'm just not able to do it. So, maybe I could I could start to do it, but then I put myself in a state of inferiority to justify not doing it, not starting it. Obviously, if I say, like, I'd like to meditate for 5 hours without ever losing, my concentration on emptiness, I'm not able. But if that's what I want, then I can start with 15 minutes of meditation on my breath, I'd say. So there is something that I can do from the beginning. And often laziness, I see, it just kind of stays, how can I say, is this kind of enigma. One says, okay, I want to, but I'm not able. I would like to, but I'm not able. I mean, why is that block there? And I see this in myself, in different things. I could give you a long list of my objects of laziness. And reflecting well on laziness, it's very clear that it comes from the clarity of having to do something, united to the lack of desire or aspiration to do that same thing. Desire is something very important, actually. Desire, not in the sense of projecting our happiness onto something that can't sustain it, but desire in the sense of putting energy in something, wanting something, and that's a very important energy. Of course, it depends on where it's directed. The direct antidote to laziness is effort. And for there to be effort, one needs aspiration. Aspiration depends on faith. In other words, to put effort into something, I need to want that thing. I need to desire it. I need to aspire to that thing. To have desire for something, I need to believe that that thing is possible, generally speaking, but also that I am able to reach it. And once I believe in the qualities and the functions of that thing, then I can put energy into realizing it, into obtaining it. So when we don't put energy into something, the real reason why we don't is because we don't want it. I mean, the, why don't I want it? Because I don't believe in it. Oh, see, yes, on a certain level, yes, but deeply, deeply, no, I don't believe in it. Maybe there are two aspects in this non-belief. Maybe not, I don't believe in the qualities of that thing, or I could also not believe in the necessity, my necessity of reaching that thing. For example, I could believe in water, but I don't believe in my necessity for water. If I have faith in the qualities of water to quench my thirst, you know, like for example, for meditation, I believe deeply in the qualities of meditation, but I don't see the benefit for me. I don't see the need. I don't see a need for myself. When we see that there's something that it would be good if we do it, but then we're not able to do it, or something that we know that would be good to get rid of, to abandon, then we should ask ourselves, do I want this? Deeply, deeply within, not just conceptually speaking, there should be this kind of passion that comes from deep within. When there is that, then it all falls into place. It's a little bit like the sixth Dalai Lama, who said in one of his poems he wrote, if I desired enlightenment as much as I desired women, I would already be enlightened. And in another poem, he specifies a specific woman who he says, if I wanted enlightenment as much as I desired you, I would already be enlightenment. To say that one is passionate about something or someone, one puts all of his energy into that thing. It has a tremendous power. So, abandon verse 1, put aside all doubt and hesitation and take delight in earnest practice. Abandon entirely lethargy, dullness, and laziness, and exert yourself constantly with enthusiasm. The joy in doing what is beneficial to us, the joy in the path, even if it can be tiresome, but the joy of doing something that is beneficial, that we know is right. If we have this effort, if we're able to put energy into the path, this is more important than having great abilities. I remember in the monastery there was a monk who his nickname was Iron Ring, because he was called the Iron Ring because he wasn't very intelligent. I mean, on the contrary, he was quite, I'm trying to look for a kind word. He was a little stupid. It was really hard for him to understand things. And in this, something fundamental for our studies is memorization. And so they were even like children, children at the monastery. They memorize at least 4 lines a day, and he wasn't able to memorize even 2 a day. And at one point, his teacher was a little bit tired, and so he gave to him a kind of ring, a metal ring. That he was supposed to put on the page of a book, a page of a pecha, and he was supposed to memorize only what was inside the ring. So every day he put a lot of effort into memorizing just what was in the ring, and after 20 years, he knew more than those who 20 years before were memorizing 3 pages a day. But he was consistent, So it's better to be consistent, going slowly than going quickly and without constancy. So in the end, he was able to memorize much more than the others. So we can give so many examples where constancy, effort, and perseverance gives marvelous results, even on a mundane level, physical, economic, for also results for knowledge, and also on a spiritual level. It's this constancy that really makes a difference. This is a very important point, but it's difficult in the West because we have a tendency. We like novelties. We want always the new things. We move from one thing to the next, and when we need to repeat something, or when constancy is required, then it's tiresome. It's difficult. I find this difficult in many contexts, but it's fundamental to our path. So Atisha begins with put aside all doubt and hesitation and take delight in earnest practice. Abandon entirely lethargy, foggy mindedness, and laziness, and exert yourself constantly with enthusiasm. So you should exert yourself where? So in the path that's going to take you to where you want to what you want to become. On a very personal level, I would like to be fine with myself and with others independently of where I am and with whom I find myself. On a deeper level, what I really want would be to have the tools to help every being that I encounter. And to do that, we have no other choice but to develop in a real way our wisdom and our love. Method and wisdom, and together with that is the development of generosity, morality, patience, concentration, awareness, and all the rest. But in essence, we have wisdom and love that go together. Like, so where am I putting my energy? In the development of wisdom and love, in in the wisdom, conduct, and meditation. Let's move forward. With mindful recollection, vigilance, and conscientiousness, guard the doors of your senses at all times. Again and again, thrice by day and by night, examine the continuum of your mind stream. Here are the 3 qualities that Atisha is bringing us. So we have mindful recollection, vigilance, and conscientiousness. Personally speaking, it's so difficult for me to work with translation, so I'm going to try to explain what these terms mean. So Drempa it is like aware. it's often translated as mindfulness, as kind of awareness, and shishink is vigilance. It's so like awareness and vigilance, and pagyu is like attention, is translated as conscientiousness. Let's try to understand what these terms mean. The first one, mindful recollection, is our ability to stay in contact with the object that we have chosen. I choose to observe my breath, and I keep my attention on my breath. I choose to watch to stay on my word, whatever it is I choose. I maintain my attention on that pre-chosen point. This is kind of awareness, this mindful recollection. Vigilance is the part of the mind that observes whether we are maintaining this attention or not. It's what tells us that we're going off road a little bit and tells us, no, 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 get back onto the road. That's vigilance. Instead, conscientiousness means to be aware of what we already know. For example, should we not die? Are we going to die or not? I'd say yes. I mean, sooner or later, yes. When, we don't know. So on a conceptual level, we are aware of our own mortality, aren't we? But are we aware of our mortality in our daily lives? No, it's not part of our daily lives. We don't have a state of consciousness of our mortality. So it's like a lack of conscientiousness. It means to be conscious of what we already know, to be aware of what we already know. But normally it stays on a more conceptual, non-manifested plane. So I know that I should act in a certain way, but I'm not aware of that in my daily life. I know that phenomena are impermanent, but I forget about that. I don't have awareness of that. There's many things that we know, but in our natural way of acting in daily life, we're not aware of that. We lack this conscientiousness. This will be the lack of conscientiousness. So here it says, with mindful recollection, vigilance, and conscientiousness, remember to guard the doors of your senses at all times. The doors of your senses is body, speech, and mind. Also, the doors of your senses also refer to what I see, what I hear, what I smell and taste, and what I touch, and the mind. Or rather, I need to be aware of how I react, because every time I come into contact with any object of my senses, our tendency is to react. So there's a reaction of fear. There's a reaction. Normally, the reactions are there are two types, and then there's a third one that's neutral. But principally speaking, there are two types of reactions. We come into contact with the object, and we experience a sensation of pleasure or of suffering, and we react either with attraction or aversion. In the middle of this, there are moments where we have a physical contact that can give us a neutral sensation, to which we attribute a meaning, and then that meaning brings a pleasurable. It brings a sensation of pleasure or of non-pleasure. So what I'm saying is there are some sensory objects, like if I hear a sound, but it's very strong, and it's stronger, louder than what my sense power can manage, that generates a kind of malaise, a pain, or I see a very strong light, something that that touches my skin, that hurts. I mean, there are some sensory objects that for the nature of our senses, um, they invoke a feeling of suffering. Instead, there are many others that are absolutely neutral. If I see a kind of image or I see something written in front of me, on a sensory level, or the contact between sense power, image, and the sensory consciousness, it's neutral, but I attribute a meaning to that, and that meaning, that object then becomes a pleasurable or a non-pleasurable object, and so then I have the reaction of attraction or aversion. So what's important is that we're constantly, we did observe that when we come into contact with the objects of our senses, what I see, what I hear, etc., we need to be careful to not react immediately. Instead, to remember that we should act and not react. This is something very important for all of us. And be careful not react with nervousness or fear, etc. This is something very important. But we generate we we need to have this awareness of what I'm seeing, what I'm listening to. I mean, this awareness is the basis, is fundamental. So we're constantly taking care of our senses. And Lama Ganshin often says, seeing with peace, listen with peace. It's exactly this. I put the awareness that I need to relate to the world in a peaceful way. But then what happens is when we come into contact with certain objects, certain things, I'm not aware that in reality that I am the one attributing a value to them. It seems like that reality is external and independent, and then I react with attachment or aggression or fear, etc. So the more we are aware, and the more we're able to bring like the teachings to our daily life, that's the more it helps us relate better with the reality that surrounds us, that we find in front of us. Another important point is, again and again, 3 times a day and night, examine your mind stream. This is very important. This is our ability to observe what we're thinking, our thoughts. And I think it's happened to just about everyone, that our thoughts, I mean, we don't have total control over our thoughts. I think it's happened to everyone that at a certain point one realizes that they have a thought and they don't even know how it got there. And one tries to go back and say, like, this is impossible to even connect. Maybe I was reading something, and at a certain point, I got, I don't know where. And something I've always tried to do since I was a young boy is every time that I was focused on something and then I saw that my mind went somewhere else, I always tried to go backwards and go to the point where I was. So, for example, once I remember very well, I was reading a text. It was in Tibetan. I was studying. It wasn't easy. I was very concentrated. And at a certain point, I found myself mentally thinking about a person in Brazil that had nothing to do with what I was reading. And I remember asking myself, how did I get here? And then I went backwards and backwards. and this person had some kind of connection with my father, and then I got to my dad, and then my father, I thought about the house of my father, and then what happened? I was reading this text, and then a fly went by. I followed the fly. The fly went. And then as it flew by, I saw a crack in the wall, and that crack in the wall connected me. It reminded me of my father's house that had a crack in the wall. And then when I remembered my father, I remembered this person, the friend of my father, etc., etc. And so, as I'm reading this text, my mind was absolutely somewhere else. So, this exercise of going backwards is interesting because it helps us, one, to have more control over our minds, more awareness, more vigilance, and to not lose our attention so much. And also because we start to see what, like the patterns of our mind, and how our mind can, escapes. In this way, we can observe, what we're thinking, where we're going. We just have awareness of our own thoughts, of our own feelings. Because very often, what we think, what we feel, is, we have no control over it. We think that it's all just a result of what we're seeing, of where we are, what we're doing. Very often, we live our thoughts and our feelings as if they were the result of the world around us, that surrounds us. When instead, it's the opposite. The opposite is true. In reality, I am living the world that surrounds me as a reflection of my inner state. I can't perceive anything independently of my inner state of being. So having this awareness of being able to observe our thoughts and direct them, every time, it's something that becomes very, very important. Here it's said to do it 6 times, 3 times by day and 3 at 9. One of the reasons of this number 6 is said that because within the 24 hours of the day there's 6 particular moments where there's an energetic change, and during these times, what happens is that we are more susceptible to interferences and to losing our concentration, losing our direction. At dawn and dusk, noon, midnight, there's some special times during the day where it's easier to lose concentration. And so one should observe one's own mind and redirect it as much as possible. So this means like to develop the kind of vigilance, this attention, this mindful recollection. It's like the mind that observes the mind, but let's not exaggerate and generate the mind the mind that observes the mind, and the mind that observes the mind that's observing the mind, and like getting into like this infinite loop to see. No, what are we feeling? We should see what we're feeling, and then have the awareness of seeing what we're thinking, and how we can direct, and how we're directing our mind. And when we see that we're going towards an object that's not positive, at that point it's important to bring the mind back. It's happened to me many times that at a certain point from nothing, a thought comes, stupid. Sometimes maybe thoughts, maybe, sometimes maybe a thought comes and I think, how is it? It's happened to me that a thought has come, and I think, how is it even possible that something so silly has come to my mind? But then in those moments, then I'm able to like catch it and say, to catch it and not follow those thoughts and bring the mind back. So, for example, if I'm reading, I'm reading. If I'm speaking to someone, I'm speaking to that person. If I'm doing something, whatever I'm doing, I try to be present in what I'm doing, and one needs to choose, choose that relationship that's based on gratitude and respect. Like we were saying yesterday, our mind is able to justify just about anything. If we left ourselves if we just left ourselves free to follow a kind of like a loop of of sorry, a loop of justifications and criticisms and complaints, etc. At that point, we need to really just not follow, stop, and bring our mind back. Because if we just followed all this, it just could go into an infinite loop. I've seen this with other people. I've seen it with me. And then when there are specific moments of a strong feelings, like jealousy or fear, in that moment of strong emotion, one tries to justify that emotion. But as a result of that, one reacts with words and interactions and choices. And when that feeling finishes, those actions were already those actions have been done, and one needs to live the consequences of those things. You know, it's it's not like the feeling finishes and all the consequences of those actions taken finish too. No, I did something, I did those things and I'm responsible for that, and the consequences are going to come. So when we realize that we're taken by negative feelings or negative habits or thoughts, it's better just to stay quiet. It's better just to not move. Just stay still and let it pass before reacting, because maybe we're proud, and once we start a road, then we want to justify that choice. We want to just and show how it was right, and then we lose ourselves again. So again and again, thrice by day and by night, examine the continuum of mind. When we're aware that the mind is going in the right way, that we don't need to control it so much, we just let it flow. But when we see that it's gone astray, then we need to bring it back. What I try to do is, when I see that my mind generates a thought that is not virtuous, it's not nice, it's not positive, etc., what I do normally is I try to generate immediately an opposite thought that is going to pacify that thought. And for me, it works. One needs to try for himself. Something important is to try to create a habit of observing one's own mind. It's like when we say, like when we say you should think twice before speaking. I think that one should think twice. Think 2 times before thinking, before saying this is like this. Like, look back once or twice, before thinking that. Just be less impulsive and have more control. Direct our thoughts better. It's very important. And the more the more familiarity we have, the more familiarity we have with positive thoughts, then the less control we need to have. When people say, "I want to be myself. I just want to be myself. I'm like this. You need to accept me for how I am." And I say, if you're like this, if you are like this, I do need to accept you the way you are, but you don't need to accept yourself, because if you accept yourself as you are, it means that you don't want to be different. It means that all the dynamics that you live, all the habits that you have, that you're fine with all that. And if you say, "Oh, I'm like this and I'm going to stay like this," it means that every time you act like that, then you're just reinforcing all those habits. They're just becoming stronger and stronger. When I relate with other people, I try to respect everyone, interact the best way I can to help each person, to help in the sense like interact, to create a positive interdependence. But with myself, I don't accept how I am. I love myself. I welcome myself. I wish myself infinite well. I don't have any sense of guilt of who I am or what I have, what I, what I'm not, what I am, but I direct myself to be better than what I am now, and to do and to be that I need to act in ways that are not always spontaneous. If wanting to be, feelings of if I want to criticize, I need to be quiet. If I want to lie, I need to be quiet. If I want to, this is very important. Instead, we're just going to just do nothing other than familiarize ourselves, continue to familiarize ourselves with how we already are. Let's go on. Proclaim your own failings, but do not look for faults in others. Hide any good quality you may have while declaring others' virtues. This is very, very important. Proclaim your own failings, your own errors. We should not be afraid of our own mistakes. We shouldn't be afraid of our own limitations, of our own our inabilities, our errors. It's sometimes I see some strange. Sometimes it's happened to me various times, where situations where someone did something that someone made a mistake, even there've been obvious mistakes, but then nobody would admit the error. So it's like, I did this, I made a mistake, I take my responsibility, and it's fine. It's something really wonderful to be able to take take responsibility for our own actions, and admit openly one's own mistakes. Because if I don't admit openly my mistakes, if I'm afraid of showing my mistakes, then I am hiding behind my mistakes, and I'll never change. Because the more I hide my errors, the more I will continue to cultivate them. I don't need to go around and show everyone, how many mistakes I make, and like self-flagellate and say, oh, I'm so bad for this and that. No, it's not about that. But don't be afraid of your mistakes. It reminds me of a time when I was in the monastery, and I had done something silly. I mean, without realizing it, but as the you know you know so like it, even if I wasn't aware of having done something silly, it doesn't take away, the having done it, And I can't remember all the details, but I think I had said something to my teacher, who was someone who was very important to me, and I said something to one teacher, making reference to another teacher, and I created conflict between these two masters without wanting to, absolutely. So I said something that I shouldn't have said, which made this master understand something differently. It created this conflict. So this my master yelled at this other master, and I realized that I had created this conflict. And when I realized this, I went to my teacher, and I went to him, and and I was when I went to him, I was going towards him, and he was coming towards me. He was really upset with me, and when he came close to me, what I did was, with total sincerity, I said, again, La, I did this, that, and the other. I wasn't aware of this, and I did this thinking about that, and I'm really sorry that I created this mess. I'm really sorry that I created this problem for you. I take all the responsibilities. What can I do to resolve the situation? What can I do? Do you want me to go to talk to this master? To what can I do? I take the responsibility, for the mistake I made, even though I wasn't aware of it. And I remember really well that once I took responsibility, once I admitted openly my my mistake, I took this responsibility, even with that anger towards, even the anger he was feeling, he calmed down immediately, because he said, okay, let's see how we can resolve this thing. Like, I didn't give him a place to deposit all that anger, So I did something that wasn't right. I admitted it. I took the responsibility. Tried to fix the situation, and that pacified the conflict that could have happened, but between us. What doesn't pacify is when one says, yeah, okay, yes, that's right, I made a mistake, but and then we become the victims instead of taking responsibility. But instead of taking responsibility, we try to victimize ourselves. We say, yes, it's true that I did that thing that wasn't right, but I did this because the other one said this, did that because I didn't know, because I'm not able, so I victimize myself. So in the way to kind of release the responsibility. But instead, I did something that wasn't right. I did it. I admit it, and I take responsibility, and I don't try to hide my mistakes, because the more I hide my mistakes, the more I'll repeat them. This is something very important. This reminds me of Ben Kungag, this important master who lived in Lhasa. Before going to the monastery in Lhasa, it was like the head of a criminal gang. They would like kidnap people, and then he regretted his life style, and he went into monastery. And at once he was in the family. He was in a house. He was in the house doing a puja for a family, and he was by himself reciting a puja for them. There was nobody there, and there was a dresser, and he opened up a drawer, and he sees jewels inside the drawer. And without thinking about it, just following his past habits, he grabbed the jewelry to steal them, and then once he had the jewelry in his hand, he realized, he saw what he was doing. He said, no, this is wrong. And instead of just like putting them back into the drawer, because one could say, okay, well, nobody's here, nobody saw me, I can just put them back. At that point, he realized at that point he realized how attached he was to his image. So what he did is he took the jewels, he raised up his arm, and he grabbed his arm. He started screaming, there's a thief in the house, there's a thief in the house. Ben Kruger is stealing. Come right away, there's a thief. People come running to the house. Where's the thief? Where's the thief? And he's like holding his arm, and he's saying, here's the thief with the just, the people watching him, and they saw that he's just gone crazy. But what did he do? And he was able he was able to cut the mind that wanted to steal, because I want to see the next time he's in a house doing a ceremony for a family. I mean, he certainly is not going to be opening up the drawers, but at the same time, he was also able to cut the image of himself as this pure monk who could never do anything like that. So he cut also this arrogance and attachment to his image. So, so if 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 we did that for, in our daily lives for when we want to criticize or something, it wouldn't work. We'd be always screaming, oh, here somebody wants to criticize, etc. But anyway, the point is, don't be afraid of your errors. If someone sees that I've made a mistake and changes the image of me, and like they're not and that I'm not as good as they thought I was. It's not important. What's important is that I don't continue to make that mistake. But we're more attached. We're so attached to our image, so we hide our mistakes, and so we prefer to continue our mistakes, but not damage our image. But don't be afraid of showing the world your mistakes, because when we are hiding from the world, we're hiding from ourselves, and we keep repeating these errors, these mistakes. I mean, how we behave physically, verbally, or maybe with violence or with aggression, or ways that are just non-virtuous that generate conflict and suffering. So here it says, proclaim your own failings, but do not look for faults in others. Just to conclude this part, one piece of advice that's given is that to have at least one person with that we trust, with whom we can open up and talk about our mistakes. It's not like like a Catholic confession, because there's no one doesn't confess to be absolved from that mistake, but there's the aspect of openly admitting openly one's faults. So because when we admit openly our mistakes to someone, you know, uh, you know, without being judged, or say, oh, I reacted with selfishness. I reacted with aggression in this. Maybe I made a choice that wasn't equanimous, or I was taken by my attachment. I mean, being able to say these things to someone helps us recognize our mistakes so that we can redirect our actions. So it's important to have at least one person that we can talk to without the fear of being judged, and 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 also this person shouldn't then point the finger and say, yes, you see, you made a mistake, you're so wrong, this is not the point. No, it's about recognizing our mistakes and putting us back on the right the right foot to do the right things, to act virtuously. So there's no reason to look for defects in others. If the only reason would be to feel superior to others, looking for faults in others. In Portuguese, we say una psicologia barata. It's a kind of psychology, like poor. Like it's if someone else is worse off than I am, then I'm better off than he is. So sometimes people look for defects in others to feel superior. Like, okay, I'm not in such a bad way. I mean, look at what this other one, look how this other one is, or what this other one is doing. But what's important is that we shouldn't criticize. We shouldn't be looking in defects in other people's. We're responsible for our own actions, and we should look at what we do. So what the others do, what they don't do, is none of our business, and we shouldn't be pointing the finger. If not, in a context where we can interact to help another person change something. Otherwise, there's no reason to criticize. There's or look for defects in others. So proclaim your own failings, but do not look for faults in others. Hide any good quality you may have while declaring others' virtues. Virtues. What does this mean? Our qualities. I mean, wonderful that we have good qualities. They're marvelous. And I'm so happy that each one of you have your own good qualities, but we don't need to share them with the world. Because what happens is when we verbalize and we let other people know that we're good at this or I did that or look at how compassionate I am or you don't know how well I can concentrate. I've done 2 million, mantras and etc. etc. What happens in the end is that we 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 pollute, we contaminate that quality with the attachment to our own image, where what's important is not the quality in itself, but that it's what's important that other people see this quality, that they see this quality that we have. So I contaminate, I destruct, I destroy that quality. So what's important is to have compassion and wisdom, but it's not important that the world knows that I have wisdom and compassion, because one of our weakest points is the attachment we have to our own image. It's very difficult to go beyond that. So when we have qualities and these qualities are recognized by other people, then it's really dangerous, because one develops a certain attachment to being praised. If someone says, "Oh, you're so great. Oh, you're so good. Oh, you're a marvelous person because of this, that, etc., etc." Little by little, not even little by little, very quickly, we identify ourselves in the praises the others give, and we start believing that we are what the other people say we are. This is very dangerous. So it's very important for us to try to say, like, I am what I am. I'm happy about my qualities. I want to better my qualities, and I want to diminish my negative conditionings, my negative habits. And what other people think of me doesn't change anything for me. If someone says that I'm Buddha on earth, or someone tells me that I'm a devil, the fact that someone telling me that I'm Buddha doesn't make me a Buddha, and someone telling me that I'm a devil doesn't make me a devil. I don't need to be attached to the image of one or have aversion to the other. My qualities, what's important is that they are there, and I don't need the world to know about them. So I don't need to talk about my good qualities to the world, not directly nor indirectly. And at the same time, I need to praise the qualities of others. Why? So that I can rejoice, and also to encourage others to continue to develop their qualities, recognize the positive qualities of other people's, connect with the positive qualities with others. When it happens, when someone praises us, or we should just be grateful towards the other for that act of kindness, without identifying ourselves in that in that person that they have named, created. Let me try to explain myself better. It happens often that someone comes to me and says, "Oh, Lama, you're so wonderful. How smart you are." Oh, here and there. And even when in this last period where I'm dedicating so much of my time to the construction of the temple and the road, these kinds of things, and it's happened, the Lama Ganshin will give me many compliments, or Lama is like an engineer, like an architect. He knows this and he knows that. I thank him. I thank every person who says something nice to me like this. It's for me. It's more like a sign of affection, and I'm grateful for that. But I know well what I know and what I don't know, and I don't need to be one thing or another. I am simply what I am. I do the best that I can with the conditions that I have, and that's the end of the story. Whether it's a title or not, I mean, it just means nothing. Those are just words. And it's very important for us to maintain an identity that is our own, that doesn't depend on on titles that we put or what people say. Because when people say you are good, I come to you and I say you're wonderful. I'm pleasing you, but maybe I'm also hurting you, because if I praise you and if I build up this identity for you as being someone who's good and praising you, and then one day they stop telling you that, then it's become very harmful. When someone says something kind to us, we thank them, but without, you know, thinking that we are who knows what. I had a very direct teaching about this when there was a debate exam. It was the first exam that I took in the monastery. There were 70 students in the class, and there was seven, of which there were 7 lamas. And in the exam, at the end when they were giving the marks for the exam, it was done in public. About 1,500 monks. The first 5 were called by the abbot to receive a kata. I didn't have big expectations. I was there, and when I was there, I was like second or third place. I don't remember exactly. I have the book that they gave me, and I was just really happy. Of course, my ego was well massaged, And then one gets up there, like being very humble, but inside very, very happy. And I got home. I had the book that was gifted to me, where it was written, the third place, etc., the debate exam, etc. So I got home, very happy. I got home, I put it on the table. My teacher was there, and he didn't say anything. He just went on as if nothing happened. And so every once in a while I go, I touch the book. He doesn't say anything. The time goes by. I said, oh, there were exams today. He said, oh, yeah, I know. Just totally normal. And then I saw this inner process inside of me to feel that I was different because I was named, like in the top of the class, and I was starting to identify myself with that, and my ego was inflating. And so he was just, but instead he just treated me as before. He said, yeah, I saw that. That's great. And that allowed me to come back to where I was before and understand, okay, that means that I studied well, but I'm the same person as I was before. Everything goes on the same. But I needed, thanks to him, I was able to understand that. So we shouldn't look for praise when they come, or compliments when they come. We thank, but we don't identify ourselves in that. And when we're in contact with others, we praise their qualities and sincerely, you know, and it's not about like, naming qualities that don't have, but it's about really trying to connect to the qualities of others. It's an important aspect. Let go of concerns, for gain or respect, and always renounce the desire for fame. In Tibetan, it would be abandon the concerns for gain or being to praise, and always renounce the desire for fame. Nedan Kurti are two words. One means like to be served. Neba means to obtain material things like and kurti means respect. So let go of concerns for gain and respect, so for material things and respect from others, and always renounce the desire for fame. So don't act to receive praise, so respect, power, and at the same time, don't act to obtain even material things. It's clear that if we're somewhere, and I'm talking about my own experience, it's happened various times where I'm in a context where people, treat me with a certain amount of respect because I'm their teacher, I'm the Lama. But what happens on their side, it's right that they treat me with that respect, but on my side, I don't need to depend on that. But at the same time, it's important to respect the role that exists and the function of that relationship. I don't know if that's clear. I don't need to depend on that. And for me, sincerely, it doesn't change anything for me. But at the same time, it's important to respect the relationships that exist, like between parents and children. It's right that the parents should be respected by their children. And so even if one shouldn't expect that kind of respect, or impose that kind of respect, or much less project one's happiness on receiving that kind of respect. But it is right that that the children should have a certain amount of respect for their own parents. So on our side, we shouldn't project our happiness on respect or on the fact of being praised or served. And we shouldn't be attached to material gain. I'm talking about my own experience. It's happened to me several times, or sometimes, and I'm very grateful for what happened. I'll tell you two little stories. One, I was quite I was quite young in both of these experiences. This has to do with like this first piece of advice about being vigilant with our thoughts. The first story is when I was about 12 years old. There was a ceremony in India of the enthronement of being recognized, where there was Lama and many other important masters. They put me on a throne in the middle of 3,000 monks, and then it was like the highest throne. Everyone came to me and made offerings to me, great respect, etc. And I felt very uncomfortable. Very, very uncomfortable. And I lived it really like a really great responsibility, that was given to me. And normally this kind of ceremony lasts one day, but it lasted 4 days because I did it in Sera and the Tsampankansen, and then in Tashilumpo. I did it in different monasteries. In one of these days, there was the ceremony in the morning, and in the evening there was dinner. And there were many, many people, and people took their food, and then they went to eat in the meditation hall. So they brought me a tray with food. So I went into the gompa to sit down, and I went to go find my place. But my place was a big throne, and I thought, I, um, I said, well, okay, well, I'm the Lama, so I should sit there. Okay, and so this, I went towards that high position, I was, and then I realized right away that I was identifying myself with this position, being in a position of being served, and right away I saw that. I said, oh, I can't identify myself with this, because the respect comes from, um, what this role represents. I mean, what I am changes nothing, but so instead, so I took the train. I just sat down on the floor with others, and that was a great relief. But I saw how it was dangerous to fall into this trap, because once you sit in a high place, then another time I was like the first years that I came to Italy. Um, Before, when I came to Italy, I was going from from city to city, often to Bologna or Varese, Genova, to Turin, even to Geneva. These first years in Italy, and once it happened that in 2 days I had gone somewhere to teach, and they had made an offering to me, and every time I went there, in where I go, they would give me an offering that hardly, it didn't pay even the gas, not even in much less the freeway. And another place instead that was they were very, very generous. And once I was driving, I I had this thought, like almost like a kind of aversion towards this place where they would give me offerings that were um, um, not enough to pay my expenses, and a kind of attraction towards the place where they were more generous. And I'm so grateful, because at that moment I was able just to say, what are you doing? And it's very, very easy to fall into this kind of trap, this attachment, to do something because we have this attachment to receive something, you know, you know, there I am going to teach this importance of spreading the Dharma, but actually in my mind had taken me to have attraction and aversion to what I was going to gain or not gain enough of it. I'm very lucky in this life to not have any needs, and so I go where they ask me to go, and it's not important. I mean, what I receive is not important, and because I'm not dependent on that, and I can teach, and this is really such a relief. So, but this attachment to recognition, the attachment to material things is very dangerous, and they get in under our skin in a very subtle way, and even when we're when we're in contact with the Dharma, our motivation should always be pure, and abandon our attachment towards economic gain, or respect, or power, or praise, recognition. So abandon any attachment, and let go of concerns for gain or respect, and always renounce the desire for fame, for being recognized, which is also just one big trap, big trick. With few wants, remain contented and repay any kindness you receive. So be satisfied. There are two aspects. Have few wants, and so be satisfied, and and being content. So having a lot of desires means that you want to have many different things. To be dissatisfied means that the things that you have are never enough. I can say, for example, I'm satisfied with the glass that I have, but but it's not enough. I want also the bottle. I could say this glass is not enough for me now. I need a bigger glass. So, but to be satisfied means that what I have is enough. Having few wants means I don't need other things. So for this, to have few wants, we should try to have few wants, to not have this constant necessity to have more things. And at the same time, we should try to remain satisfied with what we already have. Because one rule that we all know is the more I have, the more I want. I have something, after a while it's not enough, and the more I'm able to get other things, the more the more things I want, and it's just never enough. All we want new things, and we get into this vortex that is just very difficult to contain. It generates a lot of frustration and dissatisfaction, because the suffering of not having what we want is one of the greatest sufferings in life, generally speaking. So try to have few desires, few wants. In a few words, give more importance. Know how to discern between what I want and what I need. If it's a need, it should be satisfied. If it's a simple want, then maybe put it on a waiting list. Or if you can get it without problems, that's fine. But but we shouldn't depend on that desire. We shouldn't give priority to our desires, to our wants. There's also an Italian proverb that I heard that says, um, um, something about high grass grows only in the garden of the king. I remember once I was in the United States with I was in the United States with my grandfather, and this was at the time where the imports from the United States into Brazil were very expensive. And I remember I went to a shoe store with my grandfather, and there were like Reebok or Nike tennis shoes. I really liked them at the time, and I really wanted those shoes. And I remember I remember being in this shoe store. My grandfather was going to give me this gift of shoes, and I remember saying, I want this, I want these, grandfather. And my grandfather was always a man of few words, and he looked at me and he said, you want it? Or I would like to have. Like it would, you know, okay, it would be, and he said, it would make me happy. Then that's possible. So you shouldn't impose onto someone else, I want, and so I need to have, but say like, you know, this would make me happy, and then you ask, well, is it possible? If it's possible, okay, but we shouldn't impose our desires as if they were necessities, because the more we give importance to the wanting, then 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 it just becomes very difficult, because we can't satisfy every desire. We need to distinguish the needs from desires and not give priorities to our desires. When we want something, if it's possible, good. If it's not possible, then we just move on, because otherwise we're going to just increase our suffering. So having few wants remain satisfied or contented and repay any kindness you receive. This reminds me of Ken Lakpala. Once, many of you have already heard this story. That once I brought him coming back from a trip from Italy, I brought a gift to I bring 2 pairs of socks to my master Ken Lakpala, and I give them to him, and he says, "What am I supposed to do with these?" I said, "Again, La, you know, you see, these are shoes, feet, socks. Can you see a relationship?" And then I said to him, "The socks that you have are made of acrylic. It's like they're not natural. Instead, these socks are cotton. The socks that you have, they don't even have the elastic anymore around them. And so you put a rubber band just to hold them up." I remember when he would take off his socks at night, he would have this big mark around his leg, where the rubber band was. I said, "Oh, that's not good for the circulation, and you'll never find in India beautiful socks like this. These were like, this um, very high quality socks." And then at a certain point he said, "Okay, thank you." But before he had said, "What am I supposed to do with these socks? I already have 2 pairs of socks. I wear a pair, and then I wash the other." And then he showed me. Um, he, you know, he, he showed me, here I'm wearing a pair, and then there's the other pair that I've washed. So after I told him all the qualities of these socks, he said, "Okay, thank you." After not even 2 days, I saw other monks wearing those socks that I had given him. And another time, he explained something to me, and I connected this. I mean, why didn't he want those socks? Because he didn't like them? No, he surely liked those socks. Because he didn't need those socks. Once someone goes beyond necessity, has no limits. If I'm happy with 2 pairs of socks and I take on a third pair, what happens? Why not have 4? Why not have 10? Why not have 20? At a certain point, this one's not good and I need that, and so this desire is never, and that's never ending. And recognizing his own weaknesses, I'm not going to go beyond what I need. If I'm fine with these 2 pairs of socks, why do I have to add something else? And somebody could say, "But then you'll be better." But if he's already happy and contented, so he gave importance to his state of satisfaction. Often, when we buy something new or get something new, the point is not just the material object in itself, but it's creating that inner sensation of needing something else, when in reality, it's just fine the way it is. So be satisfied, and it's satisfied. Satisfaction doesn't come from. It's not a result of receiving what you wanted, but is from giving. So having few wants, be satisfied and repay these kindness. These as acts of kindness. When someone is kind to you, that's something kind to us. We should recognize um, recognize that, feel grateful, and try to do something also for them. And it's important to have gratitude. It's important to recognize the kind things that people do for us. This is also part of our path. This is part of our practice. Cultivate loving kindness and compassion, and your make your bodhichitta stable. cultivate. Gom here is translated as cultivate, but it could also be translated as to familiarize yourself. So familiarize yourself in your daily life with loving kindness, maitri. This is wanting wishing others well and compassion here. Why should we familiarize ourselves with love and compassion? Because spontaneously it doesn't come. When we're in front of someone else, what's our priority? Ourselves. And you can see that. You see that in so many different ways. In some cases, it's just black and white. In other contexts, it's a little more subtle. But when we're in front of even another person, our priority is the I and the my, and we're taken by um, this obsession with self-grasping, and it's the base for all the other mental defilements, this selfishness. So it's important to train ourselves in love and compassion, familiarize ourselves. It's not something that we can do for one day. It's something we need to give continuity to. So when we're in front of another person, we need to um, remember this and act lovingly. Give priority not just to my well-being, but also to the others. As a minimum, we should say your happiness is as important as my own. My suffering is important. Your suffering is important. There's no distinction. My suffering is as important as your suffering. Give the same importance to one and the other. This doesn't come to us spontaneously. We need to train. We need to familiarize ourselves with this. And doing this, we create the basis to then be able to develop effective bodhichitta. And tomorrow we can talk about this more. But this is one of the fundamental points along our path, is to familiarize ourselves with love, because otherwise we say, oh, we're Mahayana practitioners, and because we're in the great vehicle, and and we're following also the Vajrayana path here and there. May all beings be happiness. May all beings have happiness and its causes. I love everyone, but then when we're in front of another person, we don't give priority to this person, to this being. This is going to come from our ability to see the other. So it's important for us to generate the awareness that when we are in front of another, that the other exists. The happiness of the other is as important as our own, and be able to say, even just inside, your happiness is important to me. It's as important to me. Your happiness is as important. Your happiness is as important to me as my own. It's not easy. And because it's not easy, we need to train. So the people we meet every day, inside, we should say, I love you. Your happiness is as important as my own. Your suffering is as important to me as my own. And try gradually to apply that our choices are taken accordingly. And when we can act with our speech and our actions, giving priority to the others, then we're familiarizing ourselves with love and compassion in a concrete way. So here, cultivate loving kindness and compassion in every moment and every day. This is part of the most fundamental parts of our path, and this will make your bodhicitta stable. Avoid the 10 unwholesome actions and let your faith be forever strong. We're gonna talk about this tomorrow. So the point for today, to conclude, is that one of the most important things that we saw is to not be attached to our own image. Don't be attached to our own desires. No, you try to connect to the qualities of others and not their defects. So sometimes I see like a new person arrives, in the context of friends or any group of people or a family, some kind of social context, political context. Often the tendency we have is to look for his defects. Oh, it's true that that person is nice, but but has this and that. It's almost as if there's like joy in finding defects in somebody else. Why? So even like when we see people who have responsibilities and do things, etc., you know, you say, oh, it's true that this person did that, but they could have done it better. But sure, we're all guided by our own ignorance, attraction, aversion. Nobody here is perfect. So when I see someone who takes responsibility and acts on a social level, on a political level, or for work, we try to connect with the qualities and thank them for what they've given, and not just point the finger. And if I see things that I don't like, then I will act accordingly. But don't need to just always be pointing my finger and saying, this is like this and this should be like that, etc. This is a really important point, to not criticize others and do not base our identity on what other people think of us. I know this is difficult. Some will say, no, for me it's easy. Well, then I prostrate at your feet if it's really easy for you. It means that you have abandoned the attachment to your own image, and that's a great realization. It's marvelous. Otherwise, let's put a little effort to not be taken, by this attachment, to how people see us. We shouldn't depend on how people see us, but at the same time, we should also maintain good self-respect, where I recognize my qualities, I recognize my defects, I see how I am, and I love myself how I am, but I also want to be different. I love myself in the sense that I shouldn't criticize myself. I recognize the things that don't work, but I direct myself towards the person I want to be with affection. And what other people think of me doesn't change who I am. You can say what you want, you can think what you want. It doesn't change what I am, who I am. And it's really important for us to get to this point. I mean, it's important to not be conditioned by, you know, the more we're conditioned by the image others have of us, the more fragile we are. This is a very important point that we've seen today. And another point, what we started was, try to have awareness in our actions, the way we speak, the way we act, and how we think, our thoughts. The more awareness that we have, the more direction the clearer the direction is. The the more the more awareness we have, the easier it is for us to direct our life in the right way. So just in these few verses that we saw tonight, we have enough to practice our whole lives, you know. But like as we said yesterday, it's not enough to just listen. It's not enough to just reflect on these points. We need to put it into practice. These are very simple things. Um, um, like, you know, proclaim your own failings, but don't look for faults in others. It's not so difficult. These are simple things. So let's try to put this into practice, to put this advice into practice, this advice given by Atisha, and that was then followed by many great masters over for centuries, and giving being very beneficial to our final dedications.
Bishatse Parnashaware Sarvatsovare Prashamanaya Soha Om 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 Pishatse Parnashaware Sarvatsovare Prashamanaya Soha Om Pishatse Parnashaware Sarvatsovare Prashamanaya Soha Om Pishatse Parnashaware Sarvatsovare Prashamanaya Soha Neba Chineba Nyorto Nele Tarkyurachi Rove Nini Malupa Tapto Chuma Mebrasho Menan Tudan Dembada Sama Deje Drubayi Kandra Simbola Sopa Ninche Semdan Dengyurachi Chona Kuna Ludan Sem Dunga Neba Chinepa Teda Dage Sanamki Dega Gyatso Topa Dage Sanamki Dega Gyatso Topa Qualunque essere malato che ci sia possa
May every
essere
being
velocemente
ailing
liberarsi
with
dalle
disease
possano tutti essi
be free. May every being ailing with disease be freed at once from every malady. May every sickness that afflicts the living be wholly and forever absent from the world. May the medicines be full of strength. May the secret words of power and mantras be chanted with success. And may beings like viruses and bacteria fill space be kind, their minds imbued with pity. May beings everywhere who suffer torment in their minds and bodies have, through the virtue of my merit, joy and happiness in boundless measure.
Concho sumke madrupsol, concho sumke atrashi.
At dawn or at dusk, at night or midday, may the three jewels grant us their blessings. May they help us to realize. May they help us to realize that. May they help us to realize. And sprinkle the path of our lives with various signs of affection, of very signs of auspiciousness.